morning. This week we are going to look at cellular energy. How is it that our cells get and make and use the energy needed in order to drive all of our body's functions, right? Everything that we do, from breathing, sleeping, to eating, to all of the actions at the cellular level, they all require energy. And your body has a really awesome way of making energy. The main energy molecule of a cell is called ATP. And ATP is a chemical. It's got an adenine on it, and then it's got a sugar, and then it's got 3 phosphates. And really, on an ATP molecule, these phosphates are like the boss, okay? So everything that happens between these 3 phosphates is going to determine whether or not the cell is actually using energy or whether the cell is actually storing energy. And if you think of it in terms of like bars on your cell phone, okay? So when you plug in your cell phone at night, right, and you let it charge, you're storing up energy, you end up with full bars, right? Your battery level's completely up. That's like an ATP. Okay, when there are 3 phosphates attached to this molecule, that energy compound is completely stored up and ready to shoot out and provide energy when needed. When the cell is doing things that require energy, these phosphates will break off. They'll get used. They're like pockets of energy. Just like when you turn your cell phone on and you check your emails and your text messages, and all of a sudden you start to lose bars as the day goes on, just like your phone is using energy and those bars are decreasing, ATP kind of works the same way. So as we use energy, all of a sudden this phosphate will break off, and instead of ATP, which T stands for try, we end up with ADP, which is D for 2, and then maybe another one comes off, and then we end up with AMP, which M for mono means 1. And so then at some point the cell's going to have to come up with a way to start adding phosphates or storing energy again, plugging back in order to recharge itself so that it can continue to give phosphates out for energy during times that the cell needs it. So it's a really slick little molecule. There are other energy molecules involved. I'll talk about a couple of those in this unit as well, but ATP is really the big one. So your cells go through this process called cellular respiration in order to make its energy. And cellular respiration is pretty awesome because it is just like photosynthesis, except the exact opposite. So the processes that a plant uses to get energy is the exact opposite that the process that an animal cell gets energy, which is really a cool thing in nature. Cellular respiration involves 3 stages. If there's oxygen present, glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and the electron transport chain. And during these different steps, ATP is made. Other types of chemicals are also made that are really important, NADPH and FAD+. And then if for some reason oxygen is not available, we can still make some energy, but not nearly as efficient. And that would be in a process called fermentation, which would, depending on if you're a plant or an animal, you'd end up with lactic acid or alcohol. Lactic acid is the stuff that builds up in your legs when you've been working out for your New Year's resolutions and your body's not used to it, and you wake up the next morning and your muscles are like super sore. That's because you've used up all the oxygen and you've started creating lactic acid that builds up in your muscles. Everyone hates that stuff, right? So this week we're going to look at this different process of cellular respiration, and we're also going to look at how ATP works. You can read about them. I really highly encourage you to watch the 2 videos that I have made about ATP and then also cellular respiration. For the cellular respiration video, I basically am making a map allowing you to map out this process and kind of give you the super simplified version of what's happening during glycolysis, what's happening during Krebs, what's happening during electron transport chain. And by seeing it on this, length of paper type of map, I think it really helps visualize. And then when you're answering questions about that on an exam, you can kind of see where things are happening and what's happening at each stage. So please take the time to watch those 2 videos and add any information that you need to your notes. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask. I think that the concepts behind cellular respiration, in all honesty, is the hardest thing about anatomy and physiology, especially those of you who aren't like super comfortable with the chemistry. Just make sure that if you have questions along the way that you don't hesitate to ask. So have a fantastic week.